Hello guys, welcome to the next section of our studies on quadratic functions and equations. Today, this section is on solving quadratic equations using three powerful methods with a mind-blowing quadratic method you never learn in school, and it is easy to do. Now, what is quadratic equation? What we need to understand is a quadratic equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, where a cannot be 0. The values of x that satisfies the equation are called the root, the zeros, or solutions of the quadratic equation. So look at the examples of quadratic equations that we have here. We have x squared minus x minus 6 equal to 0. Here the coefficient of x squared is 1. It means that a is 1. Then the coefficient of x is negative 1. It means b is negative 1 and c is negative 6. We also have 2x squared minus 6x equal to 0. Then we have x squared minus 9 equal to 0. All these are examples of quadratic equation because the unknown variable x in each of the equation is raised to the power 2. Now let's look at the methods to solve quadratic equations. Universally, we have three strong methods to solve quadratic equations. And we have the factorization method, which deals with complete factorization of quadratic trinomial. We also have the completing of squares, which also deals with creating perfect squares from quadratic expression or equation. We also have the quadratic formula, which we normally call it almighty formula, which is of the form x equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Let's focus on the first method, that is factorization method. What are the steps to perform the factorization method? Step 1, multiply the constant term c and the leading coefficient a. Their results, you find the factors of the results of a times c. Within the factors, the step 3 is saying that we should find two numbers from the set of factors of AC that sum to be equal to b, that is the coefficient of x, and when multiplied will be equal to the product of a and c. Then step 4 will be saying that break the middle term to have 4 terms by substituting the sum of the two numbers from step 3 as b. Then the last term is factorizing completely by grouping to find your respective factors, which will help you to find the root or the solution or the zeros of the quadratic equation. Let's work on this particular example. We should find the root of the equation 2x squared minus x minus 1 equal to 0 using factorization method. First, let's locate our constant term, which is negative 1, and the coefficient of the leading term, which is 2. So AC will be 2 times negative 1, and the results will be negative 2. Neglecting the sign, we find the factors of 2, which is 1 and 2. Within these factors, we have to choose two numbers, which their sum will be equal to the b, which is negative 1, and their product will be equal to a times c, which is negative 2. So here, negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1, and negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So we are going to select negative 2 and 1 to substitute the b as it has been substituted in this format. So here we have negative 2 plus 1, x minus 1 equal to 0. We expand this term to obtain 4 terms. Then we factorize this term by grouping method. So we group them into two terms in this particular form. Then we factorize each particular bracket. So when you want to do the factorization, we are going to factorize 2x outside, which the inside bracket will be x minus 1. Then 1 will also be factorized out for the next bracket, and the inside will be x minus 1, the whole expression equal to 0. At the end of the complete factorization, we are going to end up with 2x plus 1. We take this 2x, then we take this 1 in front of the repeated factor s minus 1. Then we take the one of the repeated factor, which is x minus 1, equal to 0. In this particular case, it means that 2x plus 1 equal to 0, or s minus 1 equal to 0. So if 2x plus 1 is equal to 0, we make x the subject and x will be negative 1 on 2. As well as if x minus 1 is equal to 0, we make x the subject and x will be equal to 1. So therefore, the root of the equation are negative 1 and 2 and 1. We are moving to the second method, method of completing of squares, which is converting the quadratic equation into perfect square form as x plus d all square equal to k. What are the steps to follow? First, we need to move the constant term to the right-hand side of the equation. Complete the squares by creating a perfect square using the identity. So look at this particular identity, x squared plus 2dx plus d squared, which the perfect square will be created using the x and this particular d. Put all of them in a bracket and the square will be outside in this particular format. So this is the identity we are going to use. How did we get the d? The d is equal to this particular coefficient of x, that is 2d divided by 2. We saw by using square root to simplify both sides of the equation to make x the subject. What we need to note under completing of square is such that before completing the squares, make sure the coefficient of x squared is 1. Now, using the same example, let's use completing of squares to find our answer. We have 2x squared minus x minus 1. Since I want to make sure coefficient of x squared is 1, I have to factorize the 2 outside. So dividing both sides of this particular equation will end us getting the expression to be x squared minus 1 over 2x minus 1 on 3 equal to 0. So now, the first step is to send the constant term across the equal sign, which will be expressed in this particular format. Now we have x squared minus 1 over 2x equal to 1 on 2. The next thing is to look at the coefficient of x. Then divide it by 2. So here the coefficient of x is negative 1 on 2 divided by 2 give us negative 1 over 4. I will square this result, add it to the left side of the equation, and also do the same to the right side of the equation to be able to balance the equation. So if you only add it to the left side of the equation will become imbalanced. So to maintain the nature of the equation, whatever you do to the left, do the same to the right. So at this point, we have this particular identity and we can create our perfect square. So the perfect square will be x minus 1 over 4 all square equal to 1 on 2 plus 1 on 16. That is the result for this particular expression. And we try to make x the subject by squaring both sides of the equation to have plus or minus 3 on 4. So the square here, remove the square root, will cancel the square root. Then our expression will result in this particular format. So we try to make x the subject. So making x the subject will be equal to plus or minus 3 on 4 plus 1 over 4. Because when 1 over 4 is negative, crossing the equal sign, the sign will now change to be positive. So we take the plus and we also take the minus. We perform the operation and the results will give us 1. And another answer will be minus 3 on 4 plus 1 over 4, which the results also confirm to be negative 1 over 2, the same as when we use the factorization method. So this is the process of using the completing of squares method to find the root. Now let's move to the quadratic formula method, which was derived using the completing of squares. In this form, we write the quadratic formula method, which is also known as the almighty formula, in the form x equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So what we need to do under this particular method is to be able to identify our a, b, and c. So we substitute the a, b, and c into the formula, then perform all the operations on the formula to be able to obtain our root, which first we work on the plus and also work on the minus. Using the same example, let's look at how we can use the quadratic formula to find our root. First, we have to write the quadratic formula. Second, we have to be able to identify our coefficient of terms, which is the a, b, and c. So a in this question is 2, b is negative 1, and c is also negative 1. When you substitute them at where they are supposed to be, b is here, b is also here, a is here, c is also here, and a. We simplify the expression to have 1 plus or minus square root of 9 divided by 4. And at the end of it, all root 9 will give us 3. So we take the plus, operate on it to have the result to be 1. We also take the minus, operate on it to have the result to be negative 1 over 2. At the end of the expression or the operation, we are going to get our answers, which is supposed to be 1 and negative 1, which confirmed that we can also use the factorization, the quadratic formula to find the root of quadratic equation. Now let's look at a mind-blowing quadratic method you never learned in school, which can be used to find the root of all types of quadratic equations. No factoring, no formula, just logic. Now we have the quadratic equation in this form. We divide each term by 2 to obtain this particular expression. And we all agree that after complete factorization, our expression will be of the form x plus m, x plus n equal to 0. Our task is to find the value of m and the value of n. Here, the m plus n is equal to negative 1 on 2, which is the coefficient of the x in this particular expression. And the m times n is also equal to negative 1 over 2. We divide the coefficient of x into 2, which will result in negative 1 on 4. That is negative 1 on 2 divided by 2 equal to negative 1 on 4. Then look at this particular negative 1 on 4. We are going to subtract a constant, and that is how the subtraction will be. And also add a constant. That is how the addition of the constant will be. So it means that if the two of them, there is plus between this particular bracket, then it means it is representing this particular expression. My m is the first bracket and my n is the next bracket, which is equal to negative 1 over 2. So I will substitute the m and substitute the n. It means their product is also equal to negative 1 over 2, which is the constant term. In this case, remember, minus is here, plus is here. So we are having difference of two squares. So negative 1 over 4 square minus k square equal to negative 1 on 2. We make k squared the subject, and k squared will be equal to 9 over 16. And my k, when you square both sides, will be 3 on 4. So the m is equal to the first bracket. We subtract the k from it and we have negative 1. The n is equal to the second bracket. We subtract the k, we add the k, and the end results will be 1 over 2. Put the m and the n at where they are supposed to be with respect to this particular factors. When you do that, x minus 1 equal to 0. So x will be equal to 1, and x plus 1 over 2 equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 1 over 2. So this is one of the unique method which we were not learned in school. And welcome to Roland High School Maths Room, where you've been able to learn another method of solving quadratic equation. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to this particular channel to continue getting the best of high school maths education from us. Take care.